welcome to The Explainer. So, is the government just another business, a really, really big one? Or is there something fundamentally different about the way it works? Today, we're going to dig into that increasingly blurry line between the public and private sectors to figure out what's really at stake. Okay, let's start with something you know, the post office versus Amazon. They both bring packages to your door, right? But one is a public service and the other is a massive global business. This simple comparison actually tells us a whole lot about how we set up our society. So, what is the real difference? On the surface, the line seems pretty clear. It's all about the mission. One is here to serve the public good. The other is here to serve the bottom line, profit. But as we're about to see, it's really not that simple anymore. So here's the absolute core idea. Public administration, its whole goal is to improve the general welfare. Success is measured by how satisfied the public is, not by how much money it makes. For a business, it's the total opposite. If it's not making a profit, it's not going to survive. That is priority number one, period. Now, this one fundamental difference in purpose creates this huge ripple effect. It leads to 6 key distinctions that have, traditionally separated the public and private worlds. Let's break them down. This table really gets to the nitty-gritty of their day-to-day operations. Public administration is often rigid because it's bound by laws, and it operates under this intense microscope of public scrutiny. Oh, and it's massively influenced by politics. Businesses, on the other hand, tend to be way more flexible, they operate in private, and they're driven by the forces of the market. But in our modern mixed economy, those nice, clean lines, they're starting to get really, really blurry. The distinction just isn't as simple as it used to be. And where these two worlds overlap, well, that's where things get super interesting. So on one side of this whole debate, you have the traditional view, summed up perfectly by the political scientist Wallace Sayre. He argued that any similarities, like, say, managing a budget, are just superficial. At their core, he said, public and private organizations are completely different animals. And then you have the modern counter-argument. And Barry Bozeman just nails it here. He's saying, hey, wait a second. Government regulation and influence is so widespread, think about taxes, environmental laws, labor rules, that no organization is ever truly private. Every single business has to operate within a framework that's set by public authority. And we see this playing out everywhere, right? You've got state-run transit systems trying to operate more like businesses to be efficient. And at the exact same time, you have private companies trying to navigate this incredibly complex web of government regulations just to stay open. The two worlds are constantly intersecting. Now, this blurring of the lines, it didn't just happen by accident. It's actually fueled a really powerful and deliberate trend that's trying to completely redefine the role of government. And it's called privatization. At its most basic, that's exactly what privatization means. It's the tangible shift of an organization, a service, or even an asset from government control into the hands of a private company. But it's so much more than just a transaction. It's a whole philosophical shift. It's a movement that's built on the idea that maybe private institutions can be better, faster, or more efficient at giving people what they need than the government can. This whole movement is really driven by 4 main forces. First, you've got the pragmatic argument. Hey, it can just be cheaper, like when a city contracts out its recycling to save taxpayer money. Second, there's the ideological belief. Some people just want a smaller government, end of story. Third is the commercial drive. Businesses see huge opportunities for profit in government services. And fourth is a populist idea, that it can give citizens more choice, like with school voucher programs. So if that's the why, then what about the how? How does this shift from public to private control actually happen in the real world? It usually happens in one of 3 ways. First is divestment. That's when the government sells something off completely, like a state-owned airline. Second, and this is really common, is delegation. The government hires a private company to do a job, like trash collection or road work, but it still keeps an eye on them. And third, there's displacement. This is when a private company just starts doing something better or cheaper. Think FedEx versus the post office for overnight delivery, and the government service just kind of takes a backseat. So as all these lines keep blurring and services keep shifting from public to private, it forces us to ask a really, really important question. What is the unique and enduring purpose of public administration? What's left that only the government can do? Well, a huge difference that's still there is their relationship with the market. Public agencies are often the only game in town. They're funded by taxes, so they don't really face competition. Private companies, though, they have to compete every single day to survive. If they can't offer better prices or better quality, they go out of business. And this brings us to what truly makes public administration unique. For one, it's rooted in law, and it's the only entity that wields sovereign power to enforce those laws. It's also responsible for public goods, things like clean air or national defense that a private company would have zero incentive to provide. And ultimately, it's the government's job to tackle society's biggest, thorniest challenges. At the end of the day, it all boils down to this. This is the one mission that can never be fully privatized or outsourced. The stewardship of our collective good, the public interest, that remains the core, non-negotiable job of government. And this quote from Rosenblum just captures the spirit of that mission perfectly. It's not just another management style, it's a public trust. This really frames public service as a unique kind of moral endeavor, a huge responsibility that's held on behalf of every single citizen. So we're left with this final, crucial question to think about. As the government's role continues to shift from being the doer of tasks to more of an enabler that just contracts out and oversees others, what are the trade-offs? What do we gain in efficiency, and what might we be losing in public accountability, in fairness, and in simple trust? That's the conversation we really need to be having.